Hello everyone, my name is Pritam and you're watching Tech with Pri. Welcome to my channel and I'm back with another tech video. Now this is the 17th video of this tutorial series called Cloud Computing with Microsoft Azure. In my last video, we have explored the network security group in Azure, which is called NSG, and we have also configured some inbound and outbound rules. And I've shown you how you can test that and the rules and to check that whether it is working fine or not, which is very important. Now, before that, if you have missed the last video of how you can configure network security group, please go and check the video. I'm gonna give the link in the description, and you can find it here also in your screen. Now, today we are going to learn about the firewall, so which is the next level of support where you will understand when we will create and test it in front of you, and you will see how much security it is giving you. So we're going to need to configure few things the firewall that definitely we are going to do together. So make sure you watch the full video to understand it. So let's not waste any time and let's go to the portal and start creating because so many things we need to create today. All right, you can see I'm in my Azure portal. So first I'm going to create a resource group. So I don't want any complication. Azure Firewall, let me create a different resource group where I can put all of the resources needed for the firewall. Okay, so I'm gonna click on the resource group. Then I'm gonna choose the create option. And here I'm gonna name it as AZ Firewall. So this resource group is only for AZ Firewall. Let's choose a different location this time. Every time we choose the default is TUS. Uh, So this time it's Central US and click on review and create. So this is our resource group which is ready for our work. We have the resource group called AZ Firewall, right? Now let's quickly create the firewall. So to create the firewall, we need to type firewall here at the top. You can see firewall option and here you have to click on create. Now we are going to configure the firewall. Actually not configure, we are just creating as of now. Later we will configure it. So creating firewall is pretty simple. So first you have to choose the resource group. So I already have it as it firewall. Here we go. Name of the firewall could be firewall 01, something like that. You can choose anything. And the region I'm gonna choose to Central US because my resource group is under the Central US. And we can choose also availability zone, but I'm not gonna choose that. Firewall tier is standard, fine. And we are gonna choose the firewall rules. So we are gonna apply rules, not the policy. And for a virtual network, now we need a separate virtual network here. And so we are gonna create a network quickly. So I'm gonna give a name as FireNet, maybe firewall. So it's FireNet. Address space. Let's choose the default one. There's 0.0/16. And you can see there is whenever you create a firewall, Azure will add a subnet. That is, you can see you cannot modify the name or something. So the name would be Azure Firewall Subnet always. Okay. Now we have to mention the IP address of the subnet. So we can just choose 10.0.0.0/24. Okay. So this is a subnet. And now let's create a public IP address. We have to create a public IP address of the firewall because we are going to use that public IP address in many places in the further configuration. So I'm going to click on create my firewall IP, maybe not that good name, but that's fine. So this is a quick creation of the firewall. You can see we have created a virtual network here and automatic subnet has been created for firewall. And now we are going to create it. So after creating the firewall, what we are going to do is that we are going to create a virtual machine under this subnet so that we can protect that virtual machine with the help of the firewall. So I will explain that, don't worry. So I'm gonna click on review and create. Now we have a concept of force tunneling here. So it will create another subnet and it is the, you can say, another layer of the security, but we don't want to do that as of now. I'm gonna click on review and create. Once I hit on click create button, it would take 5 minutes, 5 to 6 minutes to create the firewall. So once it's done, I'll be back. So here we go, we are back and you can see like it is created now. Your deployment is complete and it took almost 5 to 6 minutes. So I'll just go to the go to resource and this is our firewall which is created. Now, what we're going to do is that we are going to create a virtual machine, and we should be part of the subnet of the FireNet virtual network that we have created. So I'm going to go to the virtual network section, and this is the FireNet we just created. And if I go to the subnet section, you can see there is automatically one subnet that is added, that I said, like whenever you will create the firewall, it will be added Azure Firewall subnet. Now I'm gonna create another subnet here. Let's name it as test VM maybe, and the address rate is defined fine, which is let's save it. And we are going to host our virtual machine right now to this subnet so that we can protect our virtual machine with the help of the firewall. Now, this is the subnet that we have created, and let's create the virtual machine. So it's a simple steps, you know. So I'm gonna create virtual machine. I'm gonna put it on the same firewall resource group. Virtual machine name VM maybe 03. Central US fine fine. Right. So we don't need any inbound ports. So click on none. And let's go to the next section. So nothing needs to be changed on the disk. Under networking, we will just check whether everything is fine. So this is our virtual network, FireNet, and it is choosing our subnet that we have just created, test VM. Okay. Now we'll just go and create. So let's create the virtual machine, and I'll come back once it is done. Okay, here we go. Our virtual machine is created, VM03. So I will just go to the resource tab, and I'll just confirm it is under the FireNet test VM. Perfect. Now we have already created the firewall. We have created the virtual machine which is connected to the subnet, under which the firewall is also connected, right, under the same virtual network FireNet. Now we need to create a route table. Route table is nothing but it will decide whenever the traffic will come to your virtual machine, where it will go. So what we want is that whenever the traffic comes, it will come to the subnet, and then it should come to the firewall. Okay, that's why we are creating the firewall and we are securely managing it, right? So for that, I'm gonna search the route table here, which is quite easy to create. And so I'm gonna create it. Same resource group, same location, Central US, and the name would be, let's give it Azure root. Is it ROUT? So unless we don't want that, I'll select no to propagation of the on-premise routes. So it's fine. Let's quickly create that. You can see it's pretty simple. Now we just need to wait for a few minutes. Okay, it's done now. Now, if you want your route table to be functioned, we have to associate it to a subnet. So I'll just go to the route table here, and I'm gonna go to the subnet. And there is no subnet right now, but we are going to assign it to our subnet that we have created. So it is the FireNet virtual network, and the subnet is the only one, test VM. This is the default subnet again. Like, so when we created the firewall, it has created. So I will just choose the test VM and click on OK. Now it is associated with a subnet. Now I'm gonna configure the routes. I will go to the routes tab and then click on add route name. Is it route? Fine, address prefix, let's choose 0.0.0/0. So we're taking all of this. So from wherever the traffic comes, the next hop, or after that where it will go to a virtual appliance. So we do not have the option of firewall, so we need to choose virtual appliance. Now here we have to provide the private IP address or the IP address of the firewall. So I'll just duplicate it, because this is what we want, right? All of the traffic which is coming to the subnet, and you can understand this AZ route, the route table is attached to the subnet. So whenever it will come to the subnet, it will come to the route table, and the route table has been configured with that whenever it will come any traffic, it will go to the firewall. So I'm gonna search the firewall here. I'll open firewall 01 that we have created, and this is the firewall private IP. I'll copy it and I'll paste it here. That's it. So your route table is configured and successfully attached to the your virtual to your subnet. Okay, now the next very important thing, we need to configure the firewall, right? Okay, so route has been added successfully. So I'm gonna search the firewall again, firewall 01, and we are gonna go to the rule, which is, you can see, classic. So here we need to create the rule. Now what will happen, like we decided that whenever the traffic will come, it will go to the firewall because of the route table. Now what will happen in the firewall? So we can create here three types of rule. So don't worry, I'm going to show you all the types. So first, the application rule creation collection. So let's create it. So what we want here, what we are defining here, that only, I mean, only from the virtual machine, people will be able to connect or the interact with the google.com, not any other website. Okay, so that's just for an example. So let's quickly do that. So I'll just say allow Google. It is the, you can, so this is a priority. So I've already explained that the lower the number, the priority is higher. So let's choose it 200 then. Allow, and under the target fully qualified domain name, that is the FQDN, we're going to choose the name. Let's give it allow Google again. Now, source type is the IP address. So from, I can click on star. So from star, like from anywhere it is coming. Protocol should be HTTP, comma HTTPS, and target FQDN would be www.google.com. What we are defining is that whenever it will be searched, and whenever the protocol will be used, HTTP and HTTPS, from whichever IP. So we have not mentioned any particular IP, although we could have mentioned our private IP or the of the virtual machine, but we, it's not needed, and it will be targeted to www.google.com. That's it. So this is a rule, first rule. Now, to success this rule, we have to create a network rule, so that, like, whenever you will search google.com in the under the virtual machine, so it needs to resolve that name. So you need to configure the DNS quickly, because you know the job of the DNS is to resolve the domain name or the fully qualified domain name to the IP address, to an IP address, right? So again, like, we have a video for DNS, so if you have any doubts, you can go and visit that. So I'm going to go to the network rule connection and click on add network rule connection. And let's add it as, what should I give? Okay, allow DNS. Let's choose the priority 200, allow. And now here under the IP address here, let's put on allow DNS again. Now the protocol should be UDP, because for DNS we need the UDP protocol. IP address source type, and here we have to provide the IP address range of our subnet. Okay, so because this is the, we are creating the network rule within our subnet, so we need to provide the subnet thing. So I'll just go here quickly and virtual mesh, not virtual machine. Let's go, we can also go here, firenet virtual network subnet, and we have two subnet. So this was the one 10.0.1.0/24. So it should be source 10.0.1.0/24. Destination type is IP address again. Now for the destination, we need to provide some public DNS. So I'm just going to give the Microsoft public DNS. Now it is available in the internet, guys. You can go and check it out. And also I'm going to give this IP address in the default. In case you want to try that, you can do that. Also, there are many more available. Okay, so it's done. So we have configured the network rule also. I'm going to click on add. Now for the application rule, if I just refresh it, it is already, you can see it is apply for the google.com, and the network rule is also there for the allow DNS. Now what we are going to do is that we are going to create a NAT rule also. So what this NAT rule, I'm going to explain it, but before that, let's quickly go to the virtual network, because you can see that we have created DNS. So we have said that to go to the google.com, you have to go to a public DNS. Now we need to add that DNS in our network interface. So I'm going to go to the FireNet and go to the connected device, network interface, and under that I will go to the DNS server, custom, and then add the DNS server. So this is the first one, and the next one would be. So I'm gonna give it to you guys, so don't worry. It would be there in the description. I'm gonna save it. Now it's completely configured. So I mean, whenever I will type google.com, it will be able to convert it with the help of the public DNS. Now it is done. Now the last type of rule that we can create, if I just go back to the firewall, one of the most interesting rule, what I found it's very interesting. So if we go to the rule again, so there is a NAT rule collection. So what we can do is that if we configure the NAT rule collection here, then we would be able to take remote or the RDP. We'd be able to take RDP with the help of the public IP address of the firewall, not our VM. So our VM's public IP address we don't need to use. We can connect our VM with the help of the our firewall's public IP address. Yes, it is possible, and that's why it is secure also. And I'm gonna show you also. So I'm gonna click on add rule, NAT rule, and NAT, you know, the network address translator. So its job is to translate it. So I'm gonna click on name it RDP. Maybe I'm gonna give it same priority RDP. Protocol should be TCP. Source type IP address. Now under source here we can put star. Under destination here, what we are trying to say is that here we have to put the public IP address of the firewall, because that's where we are trying to, I mean, by with the help of the public IP address we will try to connect our virtual machine. So we need destination address should be, let's go to the firewall, and you can see public IP configuration, and under that this is the public IP address of my firewall. I'm gonna paste it here. And there is a space also in the font. Okay. Now the port should be 3389, which is the RDP port, and translated address should be the private IP address of our virtual machine. So that's where it would be converted, right? So network address translator, it will just convert. So it will just translate this address, the public IP address of the firewall, to the private IP address of virtual machine. So I'm gonna go to the virtual machine quickly, VM03, and this is the public IP address. I'll copy it and I will just paste it here. And under the translated port, I'm gonna use 3389 again. We go. Now we are going to test it. So let's just update it. Okay, so it is there now. So the first step would be to test this. We are able to take remote or not with the help of our firewall's IP address. So I'll go to the firewall, public IP. So this is the one. Let's open it. Copy that. And I will just open the RDP from my system. Now let's see whether we are able to take remote or not. So before that, just one thing, once you change the public DNS, like I've done, you have shown. So after that, you need to restart the virtual machine. So you can just go to virtual machine and click on restart. It is mandatory. Okay. Now let's go to the remote desktop again. And let's paste the IP address of the firewall. Make sure you're pasting the public IP of the firewall, not the public IP of the virtual machine. Click on connect, and you can see it is asking me for credential. So we are able to successfully log in. Okay, we have not yet, so let's try that. Okay, so my username of the server of the virtual machine and the password. Here we go. Now we are into the virtual machine. So we have configured the firewall and we have configured the NAT rule here. So because of the NAT rule, whenever you are searching for, the you are giving the public IP address of your firewall, and you have configured that destination, when the destination address is the your public IP address of the firewall, it will convert or it will translate to your VM's private IP address. That's the reason you are able to connect, right? So that's because of the NAT rule. So now the second thing that we are going to test, like I mentioned, that is that we are going to go to the browser and gonna check that whether we are able to open any website, because we have created a firewall rule that we if whenever we'll try that to reach google.com, we would be able to reach. So I'm going to the Internet Explorer, and in guys, in like in Windows Server, Internet Explorer just works. I mean, horrible sometimes. So let's search for something now. YouTube. Let's see, youtube.com. Okay, it will just ask some blocks, so I'm going to add it also. Let's see, let's add this in the trusted site. I'm going to close that, and the page cannot be displayed. Let's try other. Let's try maybe microsoft.com. Here we go, and you can see it is giving some error. So it is unable to open YouTube and also Microsoft. Now here, let's try google.com, what we have configured. So www.google.com, that's we have given the fully qualified domain name, and let's add it to the trusted device again. Add, close. Hi, here we go. Now we are in the Google website. So isn't it interesting? So we have configured the Azure firewall, and with the help of the firewall, we have able to successfully launch the virtual machine. Okay, with the help of the NAT rule. And the second thing is that we have configured the firewall in such a way that we can access only google.com, not the other. So you can add other website and you can add that. So this is how you can configure the firewall. I hope you have learned a lot from this video, guys. I know it's a long video, but definitely it is helpful. All right, so this is it for today, guys. Thank you for watching this, and please, if you find it helpful, hit on the like button. If you have any doubts, please comment, and please share this video to your friends and families so that it can reach out to many people. Thank you. Have a great time. Bye bye.